The first question I have for you, Stéphane, is actually what's your main areas of interest? So obviously data is one of them. And when we look at your profile, you worked both as a software engineer and as a freelance engineer in a lot of data first, data oriented environments. So what drew you to data and what's interesting for you there?
It's a good question. I've started in retail originally, Castorama in France, to be fair. So it was more on the retail side of managing, all the orders, all the system behind. And we had already back then, obviously an application is all about data, is all about data lifecycle. An application without data, to me, it's not a lot of things. And the data is the core of any application and all the companies. As we say, today, all companies are software companies, but all companies are also actually data companies. If you don't have data, where is your moat? It's harder to find a moat if you don't have specialized data, like unique data. And I think since the beginning, I did this retail thing, and then I jumped to a data company called Click Data. So it was data as a first-class citizen. And this is how can you leverage data for your end users? How do you help them to leverage their own data? And this is how you put yourself in the shoes of your users, having this unique data. And you say, okay, this is complex actually to use data. You have data in many, many forms, structured data, unstructured data. You have to make sense, especially before AI, of how can I use data? Is this in a format that I can use? If it's just a PDF, it's data, but I cannot really use it. And back then it was really how to make data useful already and how to make it like conceptually easy to use by less technical people. Because you have this thing where tech people like data engineering, okay, you move data from A to B, you do something with data, but you are not using data. People less technical use data for the business. And so you have this discrepancy of who is using data and who is like creating and moving data. It's not the same people. And you basically have to build bridges to make this happen. And since then, I always been in this data domain, and Kafka and data streaming was just the paramount of data in an organization. So you have a lot of data, but in the end, it's people exchanging data from A to B. And how do we make this easier to happen? We could think it's a solved problem. My God, it's absolutely not a solved problem. Most of our at Conduktor, most of our customers, they have plenty of data. You have no idea, but it's hard to leverage data. I think there is, just to finish on this, there is even a Gartner or a Forrester research, but it's like less than 50 or less than 60% of data is actually used in an enterprise. Because we have so much data, we have data obesity. I was saying this a few days ago, and we don't know how to use it because it's so much. You need people to think about the data, not from an engineering perspective, but from a business perspective.
And so you talked about Kafka, and Conduktor is based on top of Kafka. So can you walk us through your discovery of Kafka? What drew you into this? What made you specialize? Because I also know that you worked as a freelancer, helping companies put together Kafka implementations. And that was also, I think, the original idea for Conduktor. So what's the initial spark with Conduktor and Kafka?
Yeah, so I was in Paris. I was in an adtech company called PowerSpace. And basically adtech, it's when you open an email, when you go on the website, we show you ads, but it's absolutely not random. It's based on who you are. It's an estimation of, okay, who are you? What is your profile? What are your interests? It's all these kind of things you have to track, via cookies, via a lot of customer platforms that you try to get basically a profile. And when you end up on an email, on a website, you have like 20 minutes, something like this, to basically do a reconciliation of who you are, what is the website, and who wants to put ads. And basically it's a tripartite of systems that Kafka is actually at the core of it. It's like, okay, there is a request. This is the context. Who is going to pay for this? Who wants to pay for basically to show that to this user on this website or this email? And actually, this is how I started with Kafka. It was Kafka, I got 0.7, very, very old version. And this is how I fell in love, because Kafka was the system to move data at scale already. Even if we were a small scale, we had like a lot of data, like millions of data points every hour because of the traffic. basically of the visitors. And this is how it's like, okay, now you have a engine basically, but it's not easy to grasp like how to use it. It's easy to do one thing, but when you want to connect this data inside Kafka, it's becoming harder and harder. And this is why we talk about stream processing. This is why we talk about SQL and lots of technical things. But this is how I've started. Then I started as a freelance because I said, I'm not bad. I'm really not bad at it. I get the concept and I get the tech and everything. And I've started to actually teach some, organization who wanted to go to Kafka. I said, okay, this is a beautiful journey, but this is a journey. It's not just I deploy and I'm done, but far from it. And so I was basically educating organizations like this, helping them, coaching basically the tech teams. I said, okay, you need like good practices. You can have a V12, but if tomorrow I give you a Ferrari, I'm pretty sure you are going to go into, to not be able to turn 90 degrees on the first virage. And I think this is the same. Kafka, beautiful beast, very, very hard to drive. And so I've started like this as a freelance because freelance is nice to help many organizations at the same time. And I fall again in love with retail as a freelance. With Kafka, it was my time with in France, Auchan, Elio, Romerlin, and so on. Big organization where Kafka was the center of everything. But being the center of an organization, it's a hard job. So a lot of really skilled people over there. But when you have thousands of people, basically depending on the data in real time, this is something else. This is another challenge. You have all the security governance aspect, data is secured. Data must be secured. Data must be governed. Who has access to what, when, how? And this is where Conduktor kicked in. It's like, this is a beautiful beast, but it was still like an API. So in the shadows, basically, of the company, there was no visual. And this is how Conduktor started, like make the experience visual first, and then help the organization to actually connect the dots in terms of what an organization needs beyond the technicalities. Basically, you need all the things above the data. Especially today, it's even more relevant today, with all the data leaks happening, all the AI leaking data so much. You really need to protect your goal, and your goal is actually your data. And this is where Conduktor continue to evolve.
And so can you walk me through the process from being a freelancer and working on Kafka implementations to becoming a startup founder and creating a product and raising money? So how did that happen?
So you don't see it happening, actually. You are build a product because, as we said, you love to build. So you start to build something open source, let's say on GitHub, and you publish something, and then you start to attract users having the same issue. But it's still a side project. It helped me, myself, on my day-to-day job. And then you start to have people, because you want to share. It's really, you just want to share, so you share, and somehow it can react. And then it reacted like, my God, what is happening? And this is how you smell what we call a product market fit. Like there is a need on the market and people are finding you. It was not on purpose. It was absolutely not. It was like, sounds like a good idea. Let's spread the thing. But quickly enough, we started with developers. So people like myself on the day-to-day, cool. You listen a lot. You listen like a ton. Really, not all people. Let's spread it even more. And then you start to have enterprising coming to you and they say, hey, Steph, your product is actually too good. And my developers are going faster than myself as an organization, as a platform team, I should be in control of everything, but your tool is just going too fast for me. And then you start to say, what? It's going way beyond what you expect. And now it's going to the organization itself, because they want to control and so on and so on. And this is how I basically met the CEO as well. We were put in touch by the co-founder in the Kafka space. And then this is where you start to talk to enterprise and to really start to nail. So from a side project, basically to a business, because there is a real business need as well. But it was not the original goal. The original goal was just help the community. But you can go so far. And so from my role, it's like you keep building at the beginning, you keep building. You learn on the stack, let's say, a small, funny, I don't know if it's a funny story, fun fact, but Conduktor was always a US company, was an LLC. We were in France and Portugal, but we say, okay, we can decide whatever we want. So we started actually the company Conduktor as an LLC in the US.
Why did you do that? Because you were in Europe.
Because we knew, because Kafka, so our market is leading in the US. We knew that all the big actors were in the US. And so from a branding perspective, we say, let's directly target the thing, because if it goes big, we are already over there. I'm living in the US today. So I think it was a good call. It made things very, very, very complicated, to be honest with you. Learning a new culture like this back in a remote and US is complicated from a company perspective. So you have to learn a lot without AI back then, very fun. But you do some not mistakes, but you spend a bit of money and you fail sometimes, but you try to have the right people around you. So we were lucky enough to have some in our network, some people in the US. One was a lawyer in the US as a friend. So you start by just gathering knowledge like this around you until you met your VCs. When you have a good project, you say, okay, we want to hire more. I was still coding. We had like a few freelancers with us because we were starting to get money, like a 6-digit contract. So it's like, okay, we're happy.
And hold on, this was before raising money.
This was before. Yeah, this was
okay.
before.
So let's pause for a second. So let me summarize to make sure I understood what you just said. So you're working as a freelancer. You discover that there is a pain that you're facing as a user. So you're building a product to help you with this pain. You're like, okay, let me open source this. I'm sure other people will need the help. And you open source it. Then you have developers starting to use it more and more. And like, so this is interesting. And then companies calling you saying, hey, I need a dashboard because my developers are using your thing. And I'm interested to understand what's your thing. So what's the open source project? And by the way, is it still open source? And so you decided to build a company to sell the dashboard. Is that correct?
Yes. So we were basically giving like, let's say a UI on top of Kafka. Okay, really. This was one of the first one. And enterprise were contacting us basically to get airbag, permission control over their teams, basically. So the dashboard that you are mentioning. So this is how we started to sell it. So we had the company, but without VC funding and stuff. This was really the beginning. So it was, let's say, still a side project generating revenue. So 6-digit revenue here. So very, very happy. But then you look, you are with your team and your co-founder and you say, okay, what do we do now? Do we keep it as a nice side project, but we live with our life on the side? Or do we go big? Obviously, we went big. And when you go big, you say, hello, I need some VCs now because I cannot, it was not enough to just generating revenue. Probably cost quite a lot of money still. So you really want someone else to share the risk. And this is how we started. So it's a different game, but when we started, it was so easy because when you generate revenue already in the 6 digits, like, okay, everybody will say yes. That was really, I think in a few days it was done and we raised 2 million.
With European or US VCs at the time?
European, not a bit of French and a bit of Irish VCs, if I'm correct.
And at this stage, the clients that were contacting you to sign the 6-digit contracts, were they based in Europe or in the US?
Most were in Europe already, but we had already some touch point in the US.
Okay.
Yes.
So basically what you're telling me is that you're creating an LLC in the US, but you're in Europe, your co-founder is in Europe, your clients are in Europe, you don't have a team yet at this stage.
We have a few freelancers that we took to help.
Who are in Europe?
Yes.
Okay, but you went for an LLC.
Yes.
Okay, we'll get to that. Before we get to that, your co-founder does not have a technical background, if I'm correct.
No. He's from a GTM background.
And so why did you decide to basically have another founder with you and decided to choose someone with a go-to-market background? And was that important for you?
Yes, so I'm a tech person, I'm a product person, so I'm thinking on behalf of the users. But when you sell, we were selling to enterprises, not to developers. A bit to developers at the beginning, but quickly enough, we sold to enterprises. It's a full new thing, and it's where you need to be skilled to really understand the dynamic of an enterprise, like how do they buy something? It's not because the product is great. Absolutely not. It's, they are looking, they have a journey, they have objectives, they want outcomes. They don't want just a product. They want to achieve like an impact on KPIs. They have an objective. They are going to open a new country somewhere and they put streaming. Is your solution is going to help them accelerate their own journey? And if yes, how? So there is a full structure to basically find the right way to communicate, because in an enterprise, you don't speak to your users very often. Actually, this is a bit weird, but you speak to what we call a champion or an EB, economic buyer. So someone who is going to sign the check. He probably has no idea about your product, but he has this idea of what is going to be the impact of your product on his business objectives. This is what he knows. This is what he cares only about. So how, I don't care. He won't care. And then you have internally, with working with him, what we call a champion, who is going to be the person understanding your product, talking a lot with you, and trying to do the connection with his own, basically boss, the buyer of the solution. So you have always a person to do the bridge between the money side and the product itself. Building. It's hard to navigate this landscape. In an enterprise, this is where you have people on the GTM side, go to market, and the salespeople. It takes a massive amount of time and research to navigate an ecosystem. We were releasing to massive enterprises. It was already complex, way more complex than what one person can take. Sometimes you know it, but just maybe for people listening, sometimes you have just one person or multiple person on one enterprise, one account. Just to navigate the chaos and the large scale of one enterprise, you have one person dedicated to this. One person costing between 200,000 to way more, just for one account. So it's expensive, but you know that you can get so much more by helping an enterprise as a whole. And I think this is a kind of skill that you can at the same time sell at the beginning of selling, helping to do the sell, but with the other co-founder. But quickly enough, you are on the product, you are on the tech, you are still coding a bit. Then you try to, position yourself on the market, your website. Then you need to be in touch with customers. Then you need to be in touch with the prospect. And it's like, okay, one person is not enough. And my decision was more to focus on the product and the tech and to let basically the go-to-market team and so the CEO, very go-to-market, think about all the positioning and how to speak to our audience, which is way more complicated than I knew back then. Today, I know. You are muted.
Yeah, thanks. So you raised a seed round and then started hiring some people. So at the time, were you in France or in London? And why did you decide to hire people in full remote instead of having like an office and everyone goes to the office?
Simple. COVID. It was COVID time, 2020. So 2020 was great, let's say, to get started quickly with remote, because we did not know as well where we were going. It was still fresh, as a first-time founder. You try, and you see the result, let's say. One of these person is still with us today. So 5 years later, he's not a freelance anymore, but he's an employee, but he's one of the best employees we have. You bet on people and they follow you if your mission is right, is correct, and you have good enough conditions. But yeah, we started just in France, but not just in France. So we hire basically in whole Europe remotely developers. And I think...
How did you do that? So where did you find them? Did you go through an agency? Did you post something on LinkedIn? Yeah. How did you do the interview? Walk me through your process of hiring good developers all over Europe.
That's good. I will try to remember everything because I won't probably do the same today, to be honest with you. So we started with my own personal networks and networks +1, +2, basically the people around me, around them, and so on. This really started like this. but we did the usual thing of going, to these boards, these job boards, like we work remotely, remote dot exactly, but all these boards where you can put stuff, jobs. We quickly enough started with an agency of freelancers only. The name was Signify, and they were quite good at basically sending us good profiles from all Europe. I think they are a UK agency. So we started like the first year like this. They were bringing basically people from across Europe. We had no issues. It was like nice. We had people from Russia to Ukraine, Portugal, and also we were really everywhere. So this is how it started, but quickly enough, and this is linked to the GTM side. We needed an office, and we started actually in London, our first office, because you need to have some people have to be in touch with each other in an office. For the tech, it's okay because tech have their own way remotely. It's fine very often, but we realize that sales and all, they need to speak, they need to see each other. You need to motivate them by being with them. And so this is how we introduce a culture, hybrid culture, where you have an office, and we were still hiring in Greater London, and people were coming like 2 days a week. It's part of a new culture, I would say, because when you go from full remote to actually, there is an office. So people are talking in this office. One of the founders is there, and I joined. It has we shaped a bit differently the culture. When you need it for all the non-tech people, I would say this is very critical, non-tech people. And even today, so we have across the US, we have a lot of GTM people, not in New York because we have an office in New York, but they fly every quarter. We fly them to New York or London to really gather basically people. Full remote is really hard, I believe. It's really hard to connect more with people. All the small discussions that you cannot have basically when you are full remote. I interviewed many people from full remote companies, but they were saying after a year and a half, 2 years, that remote was really hard on them because they felt like a bit isolated sometimes. So to me, I think the best model is really both to have an office and to have people like this flexibility of being hybrid for personal reasons. And for engineering, I think you can be a bit more remote friendly, but still having a way to, like we have engineers in France, we still do some kind of big meeting in Paris.
Okay.
Like we bring people from London and all the engineers to Paris. This way we can connect in person as well.
And so how many people are now in the product engineering organization?
It's like 35, something like this, out of 100 people.
And so all the rest are like go-to-market and support?
Yes. Support is actually a big chunk, as we are a tech product, and we are on-prem. So on-prem, we deploy our solution in customer environment. So they need a lot of help and white gloving, I would say. So we have a large customer and solution architectural, solution engineering team as well. And then go to market basically.
And so out of the 35 engineers, how many of them go to the office, don't go to the office? Where are they located? So what's the dynamic right now with your team?
I think so. All of them, if I'm not mistaken, all of them are in Europe. Half of them are in London. So they go to the office in a hybrid way. And the other part is in France, full remote. And they are not, the teams are, we have 3 teams, but it's a mix of French engineers and engineers in UK. This way, basically, everybody has a bit of everything.
And how do they work together? So do you believe in a certain religion like Scrum? Do you do rituals, not rituals? So how do you organize yourself? What's the percentage of things that are written versus spoken? So how do you organize all that to make it work? Because
I think it has changed a lot. Definitely written, just for one simple reason: AI. That's very, very simple. Written. You can get so much more by having people not just beyond engineering. It's really even the GTM. You want I want solution pages about our retail customers. If nothing is written, where do you start? Nowhere. So written are absolutely %. So from an engineering perspective, product engineering, you need a cadence of a daily. When you have a daily and you have a good mission, and you basically in your daily, it's not just engineering, pure engineering. It's like you need people like from the test, from the QA team as well. You need people from the documentation side, tech writer to be aware of what's coming. So when you orchestrate this on a daily basis, so a visual one, not just written, it can create so much more energy because people are showing what they do. I think the big mistake that, I live through this kind of things. But when you do a scrum, let's say you have your daily and everybody, in a room and they say their thing, very, very often it's not interesting for the rest of the people. And they're like, I'm just going to wait my turn and say my
So do
piece.
you do it? Do you do it? Because for example, that's something that in the teams that I manage, I really hate it. Just having everyone waiting for their turn and say, okay, it's all good. So I actually moved everything asynchronous and have just a meeting a few times per week just to solve problems and share experience.
I think it depends on the maturity of the project. We implemented it at the beginning of a new project. It was an amazing experience for everybody, and it is still there today. But it's when you have a lot of things to build and like questions, having to gather people in this virtual room. They don't talk just about what they did and stuff like the boring. It's like, I need help on this thing. I plan to do this thing, but I need guys design. We will need to talk tomorrow. Or hey, on the documentation, we will need to document it. So it's more like, how do you leverage other people during this meeting? It's not just say your piece and shut up. No, it's like you are part of a team. Say something only if it's going to be interested. If people are going to learn something. If they don't learn anything, don't say anything. Okay, it's really a learning, meeting. And I think today it's something that you feel it. And every day I see like a new visual. Oh, there is this new screen. Oh, it's a first iteration. And you can micro correct very, very quickly. This kind of things instead of waiting next week. What did you do? What the fuck? No, don't do that. And I think it depends on the people. I would say I saw teams where boring as hell. I saw teams amazing during a daily. Sometimes I think we have a team where it's not a daily, but it's every 2 days. So you just have on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I believe, because the product is a bit more mature. So you need less sync, and everything else is on Slack or Wiki. But yeah, there is still a lot of collaboration on our Wiki.
And what did you decide in terms of organization? The 35 people, I'm assuming you're not managing them all. So do you have engineering managers, all the managers involved in the project? Do you do like project teams, feature teams, platform teams? So what's your organization?
That's a good question. And it has changed. I will tell you before the state of today. I will tell you before how I was myself trying to manage engineers. I failed really hard because I was focused on the rest. So I did a very lousy job on this thing. I think the engineering team back then was not happy about it because I was not listening enough. I was not giving this feedback, or I was speaking about things way too in advance because I was deep diving into, the strategy, into what we need to build. I did not connect it well at this stage, at this time on this thing. And so we brought basically a VP of engineering on this. And we have 2 EMs, so 2 engineering managers as well. And today's organization is really good. So 35 and 2 EMs and 1 VP of engineering. Point of contact is really today the VP of engineering and the 2 EMs on very specific things. Occasionally with directly the engineers when it's about very, let's say, Kafka concepts that I know quite well. I help directly there. But very often I'm not anymore in the trenches of building the product, but it's more on the strategic level of where do you go and why. And then I think it changed my life to have a very good VP of engineering. When I'm going to do this again, it's one of the first decisions. You need someone to help you on the execution side, because as a founder, you are so much into a lot of thinking, a lot of customer meetings, a lot of things that are taking your brain. And you forget about the feedback and the management, basically, of people. So it has been a big shift. And since the organization, the engineering organization is way more happy about it because they are being listened and because actions are being taken care of.
And so how does your typical day or typical week look like? So what I understand is that you're not really dealing with the management of the developers. So what do you do? So what do you focus on?
So it's a good question. Even internally, people, they don't know. I have the hat of the founder as well, of the co-founder, CPTO, so product and tech, but also co-founder, meaning that you add other missions and just internally focused. You are really, really externally focused. Externally focused means, investors, the board meetings. You talk to partners like, I don't know, AWS, Google, you speak with them. So you don't come like empty-handed. You come prepared. You think about what's going to be the objectives. What do I want to achieve with them? So this is, I think, 50% of the job is really to look outwards and to speak out there, to read the market, to read like where the market is going. Why? What could be a good step for us? So you do all this brain thing by yourself, and you try to distill to your organization, to your VP of engineering, VP product, to people internally, basically what you saw, what are your beliefs, what are you going to watch carefully, who are you going to speak with to see if that can unlock things for your business. And then the rest, 50% is more, very often you are a firefighter because of all this experience, knowledge and all. When there is a gap and nobody in your organization can do it, it will fall on one of the co-founders. That's purely simply. These days, I'm doing a lot of marketing. I'm really writing, gathering also in intel I can to build pages because it takes deep knowledge to speak the language of your customers or your buyer or something. If you let this to someone who can write beautiful pieces with AI but has no idea about how does that resonate, it's going to be a big failure. As a founder, you care so much about what you are exposing out there that you want to double check and you want probably to work with that. So this is another big piece of what I do. And the rest is linked to how I read the market, partners and all, is to actually work with my VPs to like get feedback from them about where I believe we should go in the next quarters and how can we align what we do today with this vision. And it's a lot of back and forth, basically, because you have to always take this assumption that I'm wrong, but I want to talk about this thing with you because you may have a different perspective. And so there is a lot of back and forth with various SMEs in subject matter expert in the Conduktor or people from the product because they know more the direction on the next quarter. But very, very, very often you are already 2, 3, 4 quarters in advance in your mind. And you need to find a way to enable them to get feedback because you want the buy-in of everyone, if it's a good idea. And you want to refine your ideas with them. So it's really this job to be always in advance, distill what you can say. Sometimes you don't say crazy things because it's too far. Even for you, it's maybe too far. You don't want to disrupt basically your own organization, saying, oh, Steph is thinking like stupid ideas. On the day-to-day, there is a day-to-day in the organization. We are doing something because there is a customer who has an issue. It has to be fixed now. So I don't care of the future. I care about now. And so you need to be very aware of these kind of things. And if a customer needs help, you jump on the topic as well. You don't let someone else taking it. You need to be there, whatever the time. We have someone in Australia, so I forgot the time, but I'm on. If he needs help, I will help the best I can. And I think this is a kind of a co-founder. I think it's bad to say this. My coach would hate me, but you are always available. You must always be available because business first. Whatever anybody say, your business is first. You are there to help.
You raised quite a lot of money since the start of the company. So 50 million in total, including a Series B last year. So what was your role in the fundraising process and what are your investors expecting of you as CTPO right now instead of the traditional discussions with the CEO?
The product. So the T, nobody cares. Investors, they don't care really about the T, so the tech. They care about the product, the why, what's going to be the impact on the TAM. The TAM basically is the addressable market. Are you going to increase it? Are you going to increase it? Are you going to increase the ACV? So this is more with the CEO, this one, but the average contract value. Basically, they really ask when you when you land a customer, how do you expand? So how are they going to keep using your product, and what kind of direction are you taking to build even more value, to expand also contract, especially because we are an enterprise-focused company. When we land, it's just the first step. We want to give more value to our customers every quarter, more or less. Some customers, we expand them 3 times a year. So we increase the contract multiple times a year. So this is good because they see more value, because they spread internally. And so the investors, this is really what they see. They care about stickiness, so that when you land, they are not going to remove you. Why? What is your moat? And when you land, how are you going to expand? So from a product perspective, it's like, okay, are you going to build a new product? Because you need a new avenue, a new revenue. You want new revenue. You want incremental ARR, basically. So they really focus on understanding the product evolution. And why? It's because they have a portfolio. They can read the market quite well as well. And so they think about helping your business, by connecting you to actually partners. So they want to understand where you are going to connect. I think this is a tremendous value of the investors.
What's the future now? So are you going to raise more funding? What's your focus in terms of product, in terms of market? I know that you're going all in on the US. You moved to the US. So that's basically my last question is, tell us a bit about the future.
So future, I've moved to New York because big chunk of our market is in the US. But there is it's not just, you can sell a few contracts in the US, but to really expand massively into the US, you really have to be in the territory of the US. You really have to connect with people. You really have to understand their culture. You really need to connect with them almost on a personal level. You don't land into the Fortune 2000 just by, I think, having a good product. A lot of it is about relations that you have with people, basically, because they are still part of an organization. They have their own objectives, their own fears. So it's like you connect to really guide them, help them as a human, not just as, hey, here is a product, just use it. It's not going to work. And so there is a massive, so for myself and Conduktor, to expand in the US. So the Series B's mission is really for this expansion to target basically from a go-to-market at the US. And as a product, the product keeps growing in really good part, let's say. We still have a lot to do, so it's a good, but we have to be laser focused on exactly what to deliver when. I think this is easy, very, very easy, as we know, to have ideas. It's way, way more complicated to execute the right ideas at the right time and to position them on the market. Again, you can have the same product as I do, but my positioning and my messaging can be different, that I can be successful, you cannot be successful, even if it's the same product. I think this is the kind of thing we have, everybody, I think, is aware of. But to position yourself well, you have to listen to your customers. They will tell you how to position yourself, actually. And this is also by being in the here, by listening to them, that we will improve this. So mission, product, go-to-market in the US massively. In Europe, we are quite good because of our history. In the US, we are a bit naked, let's say. So we have a lot to do, just opportunities here. But from a growth perspective, we really want to be lean. We know the state of the market, and all. With AI coming, I think we can try to be lean and to more with what we have already. So this is also a focus, how to leverage, the sales, the marketing, the engineering, everybody how to do better, more, by just changing how you work, not by just doing more, just change how you work, put more automation, put more intelligence. I think this one is very tricky topics to enable in a business, because everybody is at a different level of maturity with AI. We don't have the same usage. And it's how do you spread this into the business, not by pushing too much because it can break, but by coaching everybody to see what they could do in their own position. And when you do it, you start to see something slowly but surely, and then it grows faster and faster. And then you realize that everybody, most teams are using AI beyond engineering, already. I think this is one of the challenges as well that I see.
Cool. Stéphane, we're almost at the end of our discussion. I just have a few quick questions to ask, and I want quick answers. So don't think too much about it. Are you ready to do it?
Let's go.
All right. Cool. The favorite tech in your stack right now, one you couldn't live without.
Kafka.
Obviously. A book that you recommend, technical or non-technical?
I have this one, actually. It's a good thing. Product and onboarding. If you fail your onboarding, your product won't be a success.
Tech decision that you're proud you made early.
That's a good one. Letting my team decide about the tech decisions and not taking the tech decisions myself.
That's a nice answer. One that you regret, tech decision that you regret. Letting my team to make all the decisions.
No, yeah, it's talking about the future, about future tech changes, architectural changes, while actually my tech team and my product and the maturity of the product is not there yet. So to be too early in tech changes, architectural changes that are not that relevant when you think.
Got it. Europe's biggest strength in tech?
Strengths, they do a lot. They do. They complain, but they do.
And Europe's biggest blind spot? They complain.
Probably they complain.
But mainly the French.
Maybe the French. Yeah, mostly the French. But they're lovely.
And what you miss most about France now that you live in Brooklyn?
My God, the cheese. You have no idea, the cheese. And it's so expensive here, that for no reason. And some very, very, very often, it's not even cheese. It's fake cheese. Oh my God. So yes, cheese.
All right, Stéphane, thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure discussing with you and understanding a bit more about Conduktor and how you're managing your product and engineering team. We wish you all the best for Conduktor and the future fundraising rounds and the scaling part. Hopefully we'll meet soon.
Thank you, Daniel. It was a pleasure.